What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Active Self-Protection. I am Chris with Tactical Advantage, and today we're going to talk about finding your dot.
Mountain Man Medical has name brand proven trauma medical supplies with a price match guarantee to ensure you get the right gear at the right price. Check them out at get-asp.com/mountainman.
Okay, so we've talked about generating speed, figuring out how to get the gun out of the holster, figuring out how to present, and how to get a pretty strong semblance of control as we present. So the next thing that really pops up a lot is just the inability to find your dot at the end of the presentation. So I've got a pretty simple exercise here, learning really how I've learned to really get precise with the position of the gun from a draw, so I can find the dot every single time. So it's pretty simple. We've got a dry fire target set up here, and you can see I've put a dot with just kind of a marker. We're going to be really close today doing some presentations, and what I want to do is get my dot just to this dot, get it to rest on that dot. I've also put a line here. Hopefully you can see. I don't really want to move the camera too much, but I've got a line here that kind of represents about where the top of my muzzle is when the dot from my optic is actually on this dot. So you don't want this too large, maybe a 1/4 inch or so. Sometimes I go even smaller than that. And what that's gonna do is teach you how to be very, very precise in where the dot needs to go. Once you get your kind of mind wrapped around this, you can apply this to differing size targets, and it really teaches your eyes to be focused on the target and allow the dot to present itself to you there. So there's really two things that happen with people that can't find the dot. Either the muzzle's a little bit proud, so it's actually a little bit high, or they start moving their head in anticipation of where the dot's going to be. That's counterproductive. So once you start moving parts that should be stationary, you've got multiple parts moving. So you've got the gun in a position of travel, you've got your optic in a position of travel, and you're moving the head. So those two things have to coalesce to actually see what you need to see to make the shot. So what this does, it really starts teaching you how to keep everything that should be stationary, stationary. And you allow the dot to come to you, you allow the dot to come to your eyes, and you're using a very, very finite aiming reference to start doing that. And you're very, very close, so you have instant feedback. So with that, we'll just do a couple really slow presentations. And again, I want my dot right here. So I'm not going for speed, not going anything like that, just trying to present. And if it's not where it needs to be, I'm gonna make a correction, okay? So the first time I'm gonna present a little bit muzzle proud, just so you guys can kind of see that. So my dot is probably gonna end up somewhere here, and I'm gonna make that correction. It will be very slight. You'll need to pay attention to kind of what's happening, but I'll talk you through what I have to do to make that happen. So with that, let's go ahead. Okay, I don't have my dot. So what do we think is normally going on here? So we know the muzzle's a little bit proud. So I would just kind of with my pinkies, just like that, kind of pull down, and that'll bring that muzzle down from 12, or the dot down from 12 o'clock, and also the muzzle down. So right now I can see my dot because my peripheral vision is open, and we're just gonna make the correction just like that, and the dot's right on that black portion. So that's the first thing. If you're muzzle proud, normally what's gonna happen if you just apply some pressure and bring your wrist down by establishing your grip from this part of your hand, the dot will normally present itself, normally. The next thing you'll see is this or this kind of stuff going on. So I'll demonstrate that. If I do that, okay, where I have no idea where my dot is, let's see, I apply pressure, nothing. So now the entire gun is over my line of sight. So if I lift my head, there's my dot, and it's right around here. So the gun was actually presented correctly, but when I input motion into my head, now my head's no longer where it should be for the presentation to work. I hope that makes sense. I know it's relatively complex. In the next video, we're going to talk about some other ways to kind of deal with head and shoulder movement. But for now, we're just going to try and use this as a visual reference and some feedback to help us correct that in the early stages. So now we can just start doing it. We'll just do a couple dry presentations right where it needs to be. Right where it needs to be. And right now, the dot is dropping in from 12 o'clock. I'm not a super proponent that it has to do that. If your dot comes in from 2 o'clock, 11 o'clock, that doesn't really mean so much to me as long as it's relatively repeatable and you understand what's happening. So again, we can kind of take a reference. We want our dot right here. Our muzzle, top of our muzzle should be right about there. So you guys can judge for yourself. Are we getting where we need to be? We'll start speeding up just a little bit. So presenting a little bit to the right, but we're still really, really close. Slight corrections happening. Now, we can probably do a couple. Fumbled up my support hand right there, but we'll probably do a couple with a trigger press just to see if we upset the sight picture once we get there. So same thing, just with a trigger press. Right where we need to be. Now that was a little bit high, so probably have my dot right about there at about 11 o'clock and about a ½ inch above that dot. So that's just getting excited. So staying in it. And this isn't about speed. This is about repeating and honing your ability to get the gun exactly where you want and understand what you need to see to make that happen. So I do this a couple times a week, just for a minute or so. So just a few repetitions, and what ends up happening, so let's move away from that. This is how you establish the ability to do that. It's worked very, very well for me. Now, once you do that, you can get into the position where you can start differing targets. So I know how to repeatedly get the dot where I need it. So we can maybe try here, we'll try over to a 1-inch square, we'll try over here, we'll try over there. Then you start getting the ability to differentiate and apply this ability to differing size targets, differing size levels of care. And then basically you just have a strong, repeatable draw. You know the dot's going to be there, and then you can start working from an anticipatory aspect. And that's where real speed comes from. I know my dot's going to be there. I know the presentation is solid. I'm not worried or thinking about, is the dot going to be there? Because that's when you start inputting things like that, because you're actively looking. I just know. I know it's going to be there. So let's do that. We'll do this, in a 1-inch. We'll just work our way around counterclockwise. Okay. Saw that dropping hard from 12 o'clock. Don't need any distance for this. We're just close. So now we're back to a 1-inch, so we got to apply a little bit more care, not so much as the opens. Happy, happy. And then we'll just end with our dot one more time. So yeah, once you get that kind of built into your practice routine, it's going to come very quickly, because you will have to correct some of the things you may be doing to make this repeatable. And it's close, you can see it, the feedback is right there. So there's that. I hope that helps you guys. Keep up the good work.